Hey, what up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. My name is Jay, and you're watching Clouded Reactions. So, we just got done listening to Wolfpack, and now I see the title. It's called German U-Boat Tactics. So, we were talking about the U-boats. Let's see what the German U-Boat tactics were. And you can hand it to you gotta give credit where credit is due. The Germans, for being what they were good at tactics. The Blitzkrieg. I'm pretty sure they're the ones that created it. The whole hit and run. That was them. I'm just gonna shut up. I'm not praising them. I'm just saying you gotta appreciate tactics, and that's what history is all about. Learning tactics, learning history, learning how you not only how you do things, but then once they you could probably learn how to counter a blitzkrieg. By learning how a blitzkrieg works, you can learn how to counter it. It's kind of hard because it's so fast, but it's good to read history, look into it, so that way you know how to counter offensive. But anyways, I'm gonna shut up so that way I can get into the history. Most people don't watch my videos on the history channel, on the history parts of these anyway, so it's okay. Let's go.
One of the enduring images of the Second World War is that of the German U-boats,
who would hunt in wolf packs.
Well, there goes one question answered right there. They did travel in packs. Interesting. I thought they'd be so big that they just kind of get in each other's way, but the ocean is huge. I don't even like thinking about the ocean. The ocean scares me. I think I have that thalassophobia, whatever it's called, for sure.
To their own shore came the World War descending and leading the beauty west.
The effect of the German submarines, U-boats, was a major shock to the British Royal Navy back during the
I was just listening to the beat. Sorry. Indy's talking.
The effect of the German submarines, U-boats, was a major shock to the British Royal Navy back during the Great War. So it was not surprising that in the Peace Treaty of Versailles, Germany would not be allowed to have any submarines, and its navy was greatly reduced in size. In fact, the potential of the submarine as a weapon seemed such a possible threat to Britain's imports, and thus its economical survival, that there were some British politicians trying to ban submarines in general.
Well, that goes my answer right there. Submarine is a U-boat. I was going to say something else about the Treaty of Versailles, but I think I talked about this a while ago already, so I'm not going to bring that up again.
In Germany, the U-boat crews and commanders were well respected as heroes of the Great War, so it's no wonder that even as early as 1922, they secretly kept tabs on the further developments of the submarine. In 1935, when Adolf Hitler felt strong enough politically to openly proclaim the rearmament of the German Wehrmacht, Admiral Erich Raeder began building a modern, new U-boat force. He envisioned a large submarine fleet. According to him, their true potential had been wasted in the Great War because Germany was unable to produce enough of them to be really effective. But to his dismay, not only the Anglo-German naval agreement, but also Hitler's own visions of mighty battleships and aircraft carriers seriously limited his options. So Raeder tasked the acclaimed submarine captain from the Great War, now Admiral Karl Dönitz, to do the best he could with what he had at hand. And that was little enough. By the outbreak of the Second World War, the Kriegsmarine had only 39 frontline submarines available. Dönitz and Raeder agreed that such a small force couldn't achieve much, especially if Hitler kept insisting on playing by the rules of prize regulations. By late 1940, though, even after the Führer switched to all-out submarine warfare, only 13 new U-boats had been commissioned, not even enough to replace their losses. And the Royal Navy was turning to the convoy system faster than expected. After the sinking of the passenger liner Athenia and the battleship Royal Oak, right in the Navy's backyard at Scapa Flow, the British government insisted on grouping together large numbers of merchant ships that were to be escorted by the Royal Navy in convoys. The convoy system had been the major counter to the German submarines in the Great War. And now Admiral Dönitz sought to overcome that problem by concentrating his submarines in the same way. The idea of the Wolfpack was born.
So before, was that just not a thing? Was it just like that's what I always assumed, that submarines kind of just worked on their own especially because I just seen a lot of movies. That's just a lot of Hollywood, and I know Hollywood isn't real, but there's like a degree of truth to it. So, but I always thought submarines would attack alone. So is it? See, like again, changing up the tactics. So their submarines weren't used in that way, and since they saw that the British started escorting the merchant ships with a convoy of battleships, they started doing like, you know what? One submarine's not going to do it. Let's just get a whole bunch of them, pack it all at once, smack them. I wonder if they, because they're underwater, and of course battleships have like radar, so they know kind of where they're at. But if they all just sneak up and just start shooting, just start attacking, it'll catch them off guard. I don't know how good the radar was back then. I don't know.
The surface it seems quiet and calm. Deep down below the Wolfpack lurks. No.
If Germany wanted to bring Britain to its knees, they had to win the tonnage war. They simply had to sink more ships and cargo than the British could reproduce. But it was a slow process. During the Norwegian campaign, the submarines had faulty torpedoes, which repeatedly jeopardized their missions. Even when in perfect position to take a shot, the German torpedoes could simply fail to explode or to find their target. This was not only really frustrating, but also dangerous to the then exposed submarines. German scientists then came up with magnetic triggers instead of impact fuses, which would detonate in the range of the vessels. By 1940, with the comfort of the French ports after the Battle of France, which eliminated the time-consuming transit into the Atlantic and increased the effectiveness of the submarines by shortening repair times, the Wolfpack seemed to be ready. Convoys heading out from Canada towards the British Isles were the first to fall prey to the new tactics. Like a real pack of wolves, the first vessel that located the convoy would inform the others of its coordinates via radio transmission and continue to shadow it. The commander of the group would come up with a plan of approach and coordinate the coming attack from his own submarine. Then, when in a favorable position, the Wolfpack would strike. If the convoy was not strongly protected, or if a smaller group was separated by the rest by bad weather or whatever, they engaged the enemy. If not, they waited for the dark of night.
So did they not have radar, or was it just not that effective?
U-boats were hard to detect in any case, even with the advanced abilities of the Royal Navy. But under cover of the night, after silently surfacing, they would be silhouetted by their commanders against the dark horizon, or against a strong wind, making detection many times harder. Then they would strike, usually firing 3 or 4 or all torpedo tubes one after the other to minimize the risk of torpedo failure affecting targeting. The convoy's armed escort ship would usually react to the first attacker, which had to dive and take evasive action. But that led to the disruption of the convoy's formation. As the convoy reacted, the second submarine would attack, hitting the group from a different angle, then evade and give another submarine the chance to shine. This way, they could maybe sink 5, 6, or even 7 ships at one approach and get away without losing a sub. If each
This is like underwater blitzkrieg. That is crazy. So they would come at that is genius, man. You would think that they would do that from the get-go, attack from different angles, so they wouldn't know. Like once that first torpedo goes off, that submarine gave its position away, but then another one will fire from a different position, effectively just creating chaos, not knowing where everything's coming from. You would think that would be like the original concept, the original tactic. The fact that they had to switch to that, I don't know. That's weird. That's crazy how we're getting tactics from like animals, a wolf pack.
Convoy lost around 10% of its merchant ships this way, Britain would indeed lose the tonnage war. In fact, some early convoy losses were so high that British High Command kept the numbers from the public to avoid panic. And because of the first positive results, Raeder and Dönitz were optimistic that by enlarging the submarine fleet, the tonnage victory was theirs for the taking. Britain could not use its mighty navy to guard against invasion and protect its merchant fleet at the same time, could they? But once more, their pleas fell on deaf ears. This time, it was Germany's favorite uniform fetishist, Hermann Goering, who, as the man who divided the resources, favored his Luftwaffe over the navy. Once more, the full potential of the Wolfpacks could not be unleashed. Still, from June 1940 to March 1941, The German submarine fleet inflicted heavy losses on the convoys, but once the threat of a German invasion of Britain really faded, then the British began catching up with them. They outfitted their ships with air-to-surface radar systems, began using naval aircraft more efficiently in general, and organized hunting groups equipped with depth charges. Mid-1941 was a real low point for the German Navy, as many of its submarine aces, those with 5 or more kills, were themselves killed or sunk by the new aggressiveness of the British escorts. The exchange rate went to 5 British ships for 1 German submarine, and that was not sustainable for Germany. The Wolfpacks were still deadly, they just now had to be carefully deployed. Radio communication and coordination were key for that game, and as long as the Allies failed to crack their codes, the Wolfpacks were indeed invisible in their approach. But then, the British cracked their codes. Unknown to the Kriegsmarine, the capture of U-110 led to the cracking of the German coding machine Enigma at Bletchley Park, which now allowed the British to have a comprehensive...
I'm surprised that once the German U-boat was captured, they didn't scuttle their own submarine, you know? You hear a lot of stories about how Hitler was like really adamant about not giving up. It was better to just die in battle instead of like giving up. And I'm surprised that, and this was 1941. This is still when Germany was still going strong, I believe. So I'm surprised that they actually surrendered. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my teaching of history is wrong. Maybe maybe he instilled that in the soldiers, but they didn't really, follow him on that. I don't know.
Enigma at Bletchley Park, which now allowed the British to have a comprehensive picture of the German submarine deployment. 1942 began with a new British confidence that the Wolfpacks would soon be tamed or skinned. However, now that the U.S. had joined the war, increasing transatlantic traffic was cause for new headaches, and Dönitz had shifted his attention further westward to intercept as much of that traffic as possible. On May 6, 1942, convoy ON-92, outbound from Britain to North America, 42 ships strong, left Liverpool, guarded by the destroyer Gleaves, the cutter Ingham, and 4 Canadian corvettes. It was a rather ill-equipped and inexperienced convoy. Only HMS Barry carried a high-frequency direction finder, and only one other ship was equipped with a 10-centimeter radar system. To save as much time as possible, they took the Great Circle route, the shortest and most direct line across the North Atlantic, but also the most predictable.
Took a short way in, the long route back, convoy 92. Gleaves and Ingham leading, tankers to the west. And upon the North Atlantic, lie the silence of the seas. And on the quietest night, in the darkest hour, the Kriegsmarine appear.
It did not take long for the Germans to intercept their radio traffic. On May 11th, U-569 spotted the convoy and alerted the rest of its pack. Wolfpack Hecht Pike was soon in pursuit. The Barry was quick to realize that they were being shadowed, and not only by U-569, but also at least 2 other submarines. Now, a convoy usually had at least 2 basic options: to send out a hunting party in the hopes of driving the submarines away, or to quickly take evasive action and outrun them. Neither was really a possibility here, though, as the escorts were too few and the convoy too slow. And the somewhat outdated system of the Barry could only give a vague fix on enemy positions, and that position was closing in on them as night fell. The Gleaves decided on a daring move, chasing U-569 alone. This, however, was just what the Wolfpack had hoped for. Just after the Gleaves left, shortly before midnight, U-124 approached the convoy from the south, successfully torpedoing 2 of the outside ships, the Empire Dell and Lanover cargo vessels. The other ships fired illumination flares, hoping to catch the attacker. But that only diverted attention from U-94, who promptly sank the cargo ship Coco. Shortly after that, U-124 made a second run through the convoy undetected, sinking both the steamer Mount Perez and the Cristales cargo ship. With 5 ships reported sinking or burning, the Gleaves quickly came rushing back. The next morning, the Gleaves and the corvettes, who had spent their time rescuing sailors from sinking ships, had an easier time preventing the Wolfpack from emerging in broad daylight. But then their luck ran out. Their evasive maneuvers led them into a storm, and also into the path of U-94, who was waiting for them. During the storm that night, U-94 torpedoed at least one, but possibly two merchant ships, the British Batna and the Swedish Tolkien. Having lost 7 ships now, the convoy was a shambles, but the Wolfpack was running out of fuel and torpedoes, so Dönitz called his pack back home, pleased with the results. The Allies realized that despite their earlier successes and improvements, the Wolfpacks were very much still alive and very much still dangerous. And German Naval Command gained new hope that the Battle of the Atlantic was a long way from being over.
When I wrote the music for this song, we hadn't really decided on, Primo Victoria being about military history.
Okay.
So originally, this one had a totally different lyric. I don't think I've ever talked about this actually, but the idea was about man or mankind being the ultimate predator. So if I remember correctly, the lyrics would start, from the Rhine fall to the Great Wall. Man, Mother Nature's ultimate predator. I can't remember exactly. Something along those lines anyway. And I think I'd gotten pretty far. I was halfway through the lyrics, but as we then had the music to Prima Victoria, me and Per thought we needed something big. So we decided on D-Day for Prima Victoria. All of a sudden, it clicked. It made sense for us. It was interesting to sing about military history. It had a huge and epic sound to it. So we thought, we can't sing about beer and riding motorcycles or, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and that stuff. And I mean, this was 2004 when we recorded that album. And we thought, hell yeah, let's do it.
Well, there are an awful lot of songs about beer and sex and drugs and rock and roll, and there's not a whole lot of songs about, U-boat Wolfpacks, for example. No. So nobody can accuse you of like, oh, another song. Oh, you like beer. Well, so does everybody else who writes a song about beer. There's not a whole lot of songs about people that hate beer.
Oh, no.
You don't see that from metal bands. I hate beer. Now, it's interesting, the original lyrics were about man as the ultimate predator, and of course war is an expression of that as the ultimate predator. But is man really the ultimate predator? Because we do have there is one other apex predator that is likely as deadly as man.
Please don't say beer.
No. Okay, 2. No, the mosquito.
Oh, yeah.
Mosquito kills an awful lot of human beings. I mean, between just malaria alone. I mean, so do you have any songs about mosquitoes?
Not yet.
Well, I mean, they actually have to go to war. Ooh, interesting. I wonder.
Well, from the animal kingdom, we could do the Great Emu War in Australia.
You could, but there's also plenty of animals that somehow played parts in human wars and things like that, or even diseases.
Bear Wojtek in Monte Cassino.
There you go. And I was thinking, of course, I mean, think of all the...
I'm surprised I haven't thought about that, because I know I learned some history about how they used to teach dogs to like they would teach dogs. I don't know who did. I don't know if it was Germans or Russians. I don't think it was Americans, because we have PETA, animal rights and all that. But they would use dogs. They train dogs to go underneath tanks and smell something like the gas tank or something, and they'll get a treat. But when they finally learned how to do that, they would attach like a bomb to the dog, and the dog would go underneath the tank like as trained, and the person would detonate it, and unfortunately for the animal, for the canines. But that's something like they do use animals, just like how I think somebody was saying how they used to use pigeons as messengers to relay messages. Birds, pigeons. These are just everyday animals, but we train them to do that. So I'm surprised Sabaton, or maybe they have already, I don't know. But that would be a cool concept to like incorporate how we use animals, unfortunately, to do our own dirty work. That's a concept. Oops.
In Monte Cassino.
There you go. And I was thinking, of course, I mean, think of all the soldiers and civilians that died from the Spanish flu. Although that's not an animal, it's an influenza, and of course that affects war. The spread of sleeping sickness and malaria and other insect-borne diseases, or smallpox, which was the what?
I don't know what we should do. We should do a special about gin tonic. And
Yeah,
why tonic?
yeah. Why we have quinine. So, okay.
For a future episode, it will be.
It's going to be a special episode about gin and tonics. We're not going to spoil it now.
No.
We're going to be drinking gin and tonics when we
Yes.
do it, though. Okay.
Next time.
Well, thank you for that enlightening story about how you really began writing all the military history things, and of course, Wolfpack being one of the first. And guess what?
It's over.
It is over, but Sabaton History will be back in exactly 7 days.
See you then.
See you next time.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much for the support with the community. All the
course.
Patreons, everyone who's helping, sharing this. We really love doing this, and thanks to you, we can keep on doing it. So keep on doing what you do, and we will keep on doing what we do. Thank you.
Yoka making it sound like they ain't got the financial abilities to keep this going without a Patreon account. I think I said this in the last video, man. I know they got the money, but it's cool to show support by giving money, you know. So that was actually a cool video, and it's interesting. I like how Sabaton, they don't, from ships to U-boats to, you know, people in history, if it had to do with history and war, they incorporate in their music. And like they were saying, there's not a lot of people doing that. And I think that's what gives Sabaton that huge following. It's not just that they have good lyrics and the music is amazing. Not just that. It's the subject matter. Nobody else. There's like maybe a couple songs that I might know of where they actually talked about like wars and stuff, but not even like in detail. Just talking about how man is like despicable for like creating war and killing each other for other people's greed and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely an element as to why they have a huge following. Like I said, just a small element. That's not the only reason, obviously. They're clearly talented. They got vocals, they got music, and the lyrics, second to none. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the reaction. I certainly enjoyed the video. If you could do me a favor and just smack that like button, it really helps me out. And what else is there to say? Nothing? Catch you guys in the next one.